Oh, yes.
Welcome back once again, everyone. And today, finally, I am bringing you a review for the new Transformers War for Cybertron Earthrise Decepticon Airwave. If you've watched my previous reviews, you've heard my incessant griping about this toy still not arriving on shelves. Well, finally got one. Came from Amazon today, so very, very excited to be sharing this with you guys. For anyone that's not familiar with Airwave, he is another one of the Modulator characters, which are robots that turn into Micromaster bases, and they also have a weaponizing type function to them, like the Weaponizers from Siege. And Airwave also carries over the tradition that Ironworks started, where he steals the name of the Micromaster that originally came with the base upon which he's designed. So, he's kind of got that weird conundrum there. He is a little different from Ironworks in that he doesn't exactly properly have a Micromaster counterpart that goes with him. And I say properly, and we'll get into that. He kind of does. So again, I'm very excited to share this with you guys. And if you've seen my reviews before, you know how this goes. We're going to take a look at Airwave's packaging. We'll open it up. We'll see his map piece. We'll look at the instructions. And then we'll see Airwave himself in his base modes, weaponizer mode, whatever he comes with, whatever he can do. And then finally his robot mode. Naturally, I'll be doing some group shots and things with his kind of sort of Micromaster, do the other modulators, we'll have some fun. These are fun little toys. And then of course at the end of the video, I'll give my final thoughts. So Airwave comes in your standard Earthrise Deluxe packaging. You got the character here behind a bubble. You can see his map in the background. He's got the artwork, which for the modulators, they tend to do the artwork of their base mode, not the robot mode. One thing I'm really happy to see is that his colors are noticeably darker than they are in the renders. And I'll show you those. Here are the renders. And they make him very brightly colored. His grays look almost white. I actually thought he was like a white and carrot orange and a light blue. And I honestly wasn't really feeling the color scheme very much. I didn't really like it. But I'm very relieved to see he's much darker in person. I think this just looks a lot better. It makes him look a lot more like an actual airport than this bright white color. So I dig that. I'm really happy the final product was more impressive than the renders. Shows right here that he can be disassembled in 12 steps and then reassembled into this particular base mode in 8 steps. But he also can do this base mode here that they're showing you. Of course, technically the guy's like Lego, so he can be pretty much anything you want it to be. On this render, they are showing off your Decepticon Racetrack Patrol that I reviewed previously. And, overall, it's pretty exciting. Call out to the airlock system here. And then you just got your standard Earthrise image on the side. All right, here we have our map piece. And as you can see, there's a big old planet with some kind of a moon there. And you got some travel lines that you can reveal with your handy-dandy decoder. No name called out here, so I'm not entirely sure which planet this is. Hi, bud. But, nice picture, though. I'm sure it'll plug into something that'll reveal the name here. Might even be in this wave already, and I just don't realize it. All right, now we have our instruction book, and it's just got a nice picture Airwave on the front, name, logos, all that good stuff. It's got his tech specs right here, which I don't think I've seen that before. Got the tech specs right on that front part, but that's cool. Open it up, and you have the first bit of instructions that show you how to disassemble him into his components, which is how we're going to start this review. Wow. And then the first one is one of his base modes that resembles some sort of like an aircraft carrier or something. And then the next set show you how to transform him into his more standard airport mode that resembles the original toy. And thirdly, that's right, we get 3 of them. You get his like battle station mode that is also taken from the original toy design. So very cool. Over here shows off his airlock compatibility with the mercenary double dealer. And then down here just shows you how to utilize the decoder for your map piece. Yup. Shows you how to do that if you don't already know. So, good stuff. Right now we've got Airwave laid out into his component parts. We got his upper torso and head, lower torso with his thighs, lower legs, accessories, left arm, right arm. So this is how you start out. So we're gonna go ahead and do these base modes in the order that the instructions have them. So first, let's take this, it's our thighs. Take the upper body, flip it upside down, and we're going to plug it on like so. And move the stuff out of the way. I'm going to come take the feet here, utilizing this port to plug them on to the thighs. Just like that. Now, one thing that's worth pointing out is that the instructions, they tell you these are supposed to snap in place, and you can see there are little tabs here, and the idea is to plug them in like inside the feet. The problem is it doesn't work so well in practice. It ends up causing the legs to kind of like bend inward toward each other. So unfortunately, it doesn't seem to work as intended. Now, in the end, it's not really a big deal because once you get everything together, it holds together quite well. So here, you're going to take the left arm that forms the ends of these runways, and you're just going to plug it all in at once, like so. Then, you're supposed to bend this up. Take the right arm. You want to plug it in the underside like so. And you're going to close this back up, having these tabs go into these little slots here. All right, that's all coming together. So then you want to take your little tower thing, plug it in up top, and then take your little blaster type accessories, plug them into the sides and point them forward. I guess this becomes like the little carrier's armaments or whatever. So there you go. That's how that's supposed to look. What do you think of it?
Good.
Good. All right. You want to put the airplane on it? All right. So, for anybody that's unsure of who this is the Micromaster Over Air that came from the Micromaster 10 pack that was a Target exclusive during Siege. And Over Air is kind of, sort of Airwave. And I mean the original Airwave, the G1 Micromaster that came with this base that is now Airwave. It's not confusing, is it? Just a little. So more specifically, Over Air was the Japanese release of Airwave, given a new name and keeping the same appearance except for one major difference. This is an Autobot. It's an Autobot version of Airwave. So that's what I was saying, you know, it's not really 100% quite the right guy because they're not even the right faction. It's technically a different character, but it's the closest you're gonna get. You could always headcanon it to be the original Airwave if you want to. It's up to you. Anyway, as far as this little carrier mode, what's really cool is that it's got these treads on the bottom, right? So the idea is that it can, I guess, rove across land as well. So it's like a land aircraft carrier. I don't know. Pretty neat though. It's a decent looking base mode, holds together very well. The only downside to this really is that it's more of a vehicle mode because none of the airlock connectors are really available in this mode. So it has to be standalone. It can't connect to your base. So something to keep in mind when you're deciding which one of his various configurations you want to use. Okay, now for the airport mode, broken everything back down. This one's going to start out in very much the same way. So you'll take the thigh piece, you'll take the upper body, flip it upside down, this way, plug it on, like so. And you're going to take your runways again, but this time you're going to use the hole in the back of the feet to have them go perpendicular to their little tower here, like this. And you're going to take his arms. We're going to start with this arm. We're going to plug it into the bottom here, and you want this molded detail facing front. Just like so. Straighten it out. All that good stuff. Do the same thing with this arm. Get this molded detail facing you. Plug it in. Everything nice and straight. All right. Bit of a gap here. Can't do much about that. Not too bad though. Not enough for anything to fall through. Next, you're going to take one of your little blaster accessories and you're going to plug the barrel end of it into this hole here on top, with the post facing in the back, just to tuck it away. And you'll take your tower bit here, do the same thing. And then this one, you're going to plug it on the side facing up, like so. And there you have it. This is the airport mode, also known as his original base mode. And this is pretty good for allowing planes to come in, though this is a pretty narrow runway, so they kind of clip the tower as they go by. It's not perfect. You know, these Micromasters are pretty big, the plane ones, so you're gonna have to use your imagination a little bit, have them just kind of veer out of the way or something if you want to have them run along it. But it is cool. It's very neat to see. For a little bit of fun, I've gone and connected him to our other Decepticon modulator, Grease Pit. Wanted to bring him out one last time to show him off, connect to this guy, so I can finally retire poor old Grease Pit from any Decepticon reviews I do in the near future. If you know, this guy's been in a lot of reviews because it's taken Airwave a very long time to come out, so Grease Pit's just been our go-to guy. I've also, just because I can, attached the Decepticon Battlemaster double crosser here, just to really show off the play pattern. And I like how well the grays match. I don't think they're an exact match, but you know, close enough to where anyone not really looking for the color difference is likely to even see it. So yeah, it's cool. Finally getting some sort of way to build up our Decepticon side of our Micromaster base. It took most of the year, but we're getting there, folks. We are getting there. All right, starting over again, we're now going to transform Airwave into his battle station mode. This one's a little bit different compared to the other two. So first you want to take his left arm, it's got the kibble on it, and let's start with this leg. And you're going to use the airlock connections to attach the leg to the arm here. You can see that. Just go ahead and plug it in, like so. Do the same thing for the other leg. Go like this. And you're going to go ahead and you're going to utilize his ankle tilt. Turn it all the way to the side. It'll kind of click into place like so. And you want to take your thigh pieces and you want to use the holes on here to plug onto the inner panels of the legs. Like this. Get on there nice and firmly. And now you're actually going to separate these. You're going to disconnect these airlock connections that form part of the leg panels, like so. Let's go ahead, set these aside. You're going to take your upper body bit, your torso piece, you flip it around, and you can see it's got some limited airlock connections here, just enough to clip on to these pieces. And go ahead, plug it on. Now, because they don't go the full Monty on this, and I'm not entirely sure why. I think they could have if they wanted to. But because it's only like halfway connected, it's very loose. There's not a lot of friction there. So this thing kind of dead weights on you. And that'll become an issue here in a second once we get finished. Anyway, take this piece here, use the holes on the bottom of the feet to plug onto the top of the torso. Shoulders there, like this. You want to take your little tower piece, plug it into this hand, helps hide the hand and fills things out. Take your little cannons, plug them onto the pegs on the thighs, and straight. And this piece, you're gonna want to twist and turn a little bit. You want it to where this piece is turned 90 degrees like so. Actually, take it back. The instructions are wrong here. Turn it this way. You'll see why. And you're gonna bend it like this. Then you're gonna come in here. You're gonna take this peg, flip it out, straight out like so. Plug it into this hole here. Now, if you had followed the instructions, this part would be facing the wrong way, or this part, perspective, whichever way. So that is a bit of an issue, a bit of an oversight. But anyway, so here is the little battle platform. Now, this thing's got two big design flaws. One, that lack of friction there makes it want to dip forward like this from its own weight. It'll usually stay if you don't mess with it, but any jarring, it'll lean forward. Also, this, per the renders, per the instructions, this should lift up higher than it does, but that's like all the clearance that you get, right? Because of this orange piece, and even then it won't stay there because of the somewhat ratcheted nature of this ankle tilt, right? It's got a kind of a stop point where once you get it past, it'll just pop into place either way. You don't get past that stop point here, so it's always gonna just point not much more than horizontal, honestly. So you can't really position this in any meaningful way, which is a shame. So that's three pretty big design flaws with this toy, between this piece, and then the whole issue with the first base mode where the feet don't really snap into place properly. It looks like a lot of things were missed in the QC process. So don't know how that got past them, but it did. If you want to have a little fun, you could always add a little Micromaster like over air here to make it look like he's manning the cannons. Doesn't work out too well. There's nothing for him to hold on to really, but it looks pretty cool. You know, get the right perspective, and it can look like he's actually using this thing. All right, now that we've messed around with the different base modes, seen everything there is to see there, I'm going to do my best to come up with some sort of weaponizer configuration for this guy, because again, there's no instructions for it, so I'm going to use my imagination and we'll see how that turns out. Now, this is the best I could come up with, just finagling with things and trying stuff out and kind of following previous patterns. Don't know if any of this is the intended way or if there is an intended way. But you can see I've got the one arm acting as a blast shield, the other one being some sort of a large rifle, using the feet as boosters as per the norm, and then utilizing the torso and upper legs with some guns as just back-mounted blasters. Nothing too terribly different from the other weaponizer type configurations, but kind of works. The shield's a little weak. I wish there was a way to kind of fold this up into more of a square, but nah. What can you do? I'm kind of happy with it, I guess. I don't know. Maybe he just wasn't meant to have a weapon mode. All right, one last disassembly here so that we can finally convert him to his robot mode. So the first thing you want to do, take little foot pieces. You're gonna bend them inward, and you need to make sure that this little peg here goes in this hole. So push it in nice and firmly, like so. Same thing here. Bend it in, work it in there, like that. All right, so you got the feet. Take his thighs, untab them by pulling them out, rotate them down, and plug them into the lower legs, like this. Next, you take his upper body, you're gonna flip his head up and turn it around. Just plug it directly onto the rest. Here, you're gonna untab these two plates from each other. Lift this one up a little bit so you can get some motion in the arm. Plug this arm in like so. And then this one here doesn't have a hand. So you just want to turn this around. Get that nice natural arm configuration. Plug it in. You're going to take a little tower piece, one of the little blaster type pieces. Plug that in place of a hand. So, guy's basically Mega Man. Pew, pew. And then you'll take your other little blaster piece and plug it into his shoulder, very similarly to the Ironworks mold. Alright, get them all posed up, make them look good, make them look the way you want. And here he is. The squat little guy right here is Airwave. And I love him. I think he's really, really cool. He's just got this boxy, stout little visage to him that I dig it. Very robotic looking. And since he is supposed to be some sort of like a drone, as far as we know, the modulators aren't full-fledged Transformers, but more like drones, which might be a justification for Hasbro wanting you to buy multiples of them. Not sure if that was the intention or not, but, you know, it would make sense to me from a marketing perspective. As far as posability, he has most of what you'd want. The head can turn back and forth on a swivel. His waist can go complete 360, since it's just on a peg. Full shoulder articulation, right? Goes up and down, goes out. A little bit of a clearance issue here. Doesn't keep it, doesn't let his arm go all the way up. Same thing here. You just gotta kind of move the plate as you go. This one will actually go up a little higher. Full universal joints for the hips. You get a knee bend, you get thigh swivel here, and of course you get ankle tilt. So the only thing the guy's really missing is, wrist articulation for his one hand, but for me, not a big deal. Honestly, even with the wrist articulation, there'd be some clearance issues because of the shield anyway, so it works. I super dig this guy. I think, in all honesty, I probably prefer this robot mode over the Ironworks based one. Of course, again, you can always display him with his little partner, his kinda sorta partner, sorta kinda. If you just want that nice complete look. And it's cool. It's really neat, when you get to pair up a Micromaster with his base in a robot mode. Just makes them look like some sort of a team. What was that old show? The big guy in Rusty? Or was it the little guy in Rusty? Big guy in Rusty, right? Like the big robot and the kid. Kind of what it reminds me of. Maybe like Iron Giant. Either way, I like the way this looks, even if their colors don't match at all. Here's a strictly for fun shot of this guy along with our other two modulators that are currently available. Again, here's old Grease Pit, and then the base mold for that, Ironworks, the Autobot. The only thing we're missing right now is Hot House, who is not, he's not out yet. Also, probably should have mentioned him earlier. So Hot House is a Selects toy that'll be released through Pulse and probably some others. And he's a straight redeco of Airwave here. And he's done up in red colors. It's supposed to be a fire station. I'm hoping they come up with some sort of alternate configuration for base mode to actually make it look like a fire station, because so far the images we've seen, it's the airport, but it says fire station on it. So I hope they come up with something better, because it's going to be a shame if they end up just leaving it as is and calling it a day because they painted it red. But could be what happens. And that, kind of brings me to a point that I bring up from time to time. I love the modulator concept, and I think the modulators that we've received so far are just phenomenal. They're really, really cool. I wish there were more of them. They really sold this idea of building a Micromaster base for Earthrise, which was great, but then when it comes to execution, it seems like we're just not getting enough. I kind of envisioned that by the end of Earthrise, and maybe even Kingdom, before we knew what Kingdom was going to be, that they would have really allowed you to flesh this out and have a lot of variety in this. And now it's looking more like you either get a really tiny little city or you buy multiples of the same modulators, which, I guess it's a good thing they have multiple base modes, but still, it's going to look real samey. On one hand, I feel like we should just take what we can get, right? Because this was really cool, and I don't think anyone really expected this from Hasbro, so it was a nice little surprise. But then I also feel like I expected more. And by more, I don't mean quality. The quality's great. These guys are awesome. I just was hoping for more releases to really fill out the ranks here. But that's my little silly gripe. So, to kind of recap everything, The base modes, they all look really cool. And even the new mode, the aircraft carrier looking mode, is really solid. However, two of those modes, the carrier mode and that little battle station, they do suffer from some QC issues. Right, the carrier, the feet don't plug in very firmly, leaves a slight gap there, which could have been avoided had they been a little more careful with the engineering. And then the battle station mode, suffers the most. It's very floppy because they didn't give him a full set of connectors on his back, which I really don't know why they didn't. So very floppy, and you can't lift the whole turret section up very high. So, you can't have any kind of like real mortar action going on. So I think that's a shame. Where he really, really shines is the robot mode, though. He is just so cool looking. He's just this boxy robot, but he's very articulated. I love the head sculpt. It's really cool. He's just got that one little eye there. Seems to be a common trend with these guys, the single eye, which I think is to drive home the fact that these are supposed to be drones. They kind of share that motif with the Centurion drone, who I just reviewed right before this guy. And I think it's just a good aesthetic. It looks really cool. So I'm happy I picked this guy up. I'm happy he's finally showing up in stores or online. Again, I got this guy from Amazon. None of the stores around me have received it. In fact, the only reports I've heard so far are in Pennsylvania. So I don't know if that was a fluke or if they're just taking a while to reach saturation elsewhere. Either way, when this guy finally does start showing up, I think you're really going to love him. Even if you weren't crazy about Ironworks, I would pick this dude up. He just looks so cool. He is a lot of fun. But of course, that is strictly how I feel about this toy. Now that I've said my piece, I want to know what you all think. Are you excited to get Airwave? Do you have him on pre-order? Were you one of the lucky few to have this guy already? Or is there some reason you're not interested? Is it because you just don't buy the modulators? You're a hardcore G1er type? Or is there something actually wrong with the toy itself that turned you off to it? Any and all feedback is always welcome in the comments section. If you enjoyed this review, make sure to toss it a like. Let YouTube know you want to see more stuff like this. If you do want to see more like this, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you always get a heads up when I post something new. But thank you for joining me for this very long-awaited look at the Decepticon Modulator Airwave. And with all that said, I will see you next time.